Hello and welcome back to all of my friends, my fans, and you, yes you, my fellow FTFLers, to the longest running weekly episodic fantasy football show out there. That's right, it is the FTFL Weekly Update, and I am not only the host of this award-winning show, I am not only the two-time Read 'em and Weep League Champion Hulkamaniacs, but I am also that disciplined friend who in your moment of weakness whispers into your ear, you've got this, keep going, keep showing up, because in the end it will all be worth it. That's right, it is I, Brett Sieber. Now I know it is a week MEA. If you've got young kids, you might be heading off places. I too am headed north. I'm going to take my youngest. We're going backpacking. But before that, I said, you know what? We got to go ahead and get an update in because it is that important to me, and I hope you enjoy it. Now, a little bit of a truncated version, but we're going to get moving on the show as we start. Number one, North versus South week one, and I'll be damned if we didn't almost get the sweep. None other than my hotspot letting us down just a little loose this week. And yet another close game for Jeff comes out on the losing end, 4-1. The North takes round one of Battle of the Divisions. And speaking of Jeff losing, he lost to Salty. Now, last week, Salty and Adam Swart, the Adams, were involved in a trade, and it appears that both of them, at least in the short term, benefited as they snuck out victories this week. Speaking of not sneaking out victories, we are going to get an update on Peter's meter. Now, last week, I put Kyler Murray on the list. Pretty raged up rant. I hate the guy. And I thought more about him this week because I just couldn't put him out of my mind. And what I thought about, what came to me is he hasn't just ruined my franchise by being a part of it. Now, granted, I'm 3-3. I'm in a pretty decent space. However, last week, an abomination never should have happened because I put my faith in him. Now, I'm not the only team that put my faith in him. Nah. The Arizona Cardinals said, you know what? I think this kid can do it. You know how many starts Kyler Murray had in college? 14. 14! And that was enough to convince him that this Smurf, who was better at baseball, was the guy for them. And so, yeah, the Cardinals screwed themselves. Yet that's not it. The Miami Dolphins, because Kyler Murray was drafted in 2019. The Dolphins in 2020 drafted Tua Tagovailoa. Why? Oh, because they saw the year prior, hey, the Cardinals have faith in a less than size, what we're looking for in a quarterback stature. So why can't we? Why can't we go ahead and do the same? And what has that gotten the Dolphins? Well, you know as well as I, a hill full of beans. But they're not the only team that has been stung. This spans other leagues, for Christ's sake. I mentioned Kyler Murray was better at baseball. I think he was the 7th overall pick by the damn Oakland Athletics. And what happened to Oakland? He didn't show up, and now they're not even the Oakland Athletics anymore. They're moving to Las Vegas. This one man, this one terrible Smurf of a man has screwed everybody he has come in contact with. But let's go back to the Cardinals briefly. Cliff Kingsbury, offensive guru, gonna be the next elite mind in the NFL. Kyler Murray is my quarterback. What happened? I think he's holding the clipboard on the sidelines in Washington answering to somebody else. I'm telling you, if we continue to dig, we're gonna find more. This kid is terrible. He's awful. And I'm done ranting about Kyler Stupid Face Jr. Murray. All right. Lastly, the champ continues his streak. Not only has Andy won 5 in a row, but he is also now the highest scoring team in the league. And with that, we get to the games, and Andy's game is up first. Mixing Cocktails coming in at 4-1, taking on I may suck at fantasy football, but at least I got my keepers in at 3-2. Andy races to another victory, 121.5 to 87.5. Again, 5 in a row. Andy's running backs this week combined for 52.5 points. He now has a 2-game lead early in the season in the North Division. If you're Matt, Jackson Smith-Njigba, a great effort and a losing effort, I suppose. 24 points, is the number 1 overall receiver in all of fantasy football, and he is currently 1 game back of Sid. Speaking of Sid, Make America Great Again, coming in at 4-1, taking on Team Linkowitz at 1-4, and Sid falls still has the division lead because the rest of the South, except for Saltmarsh, sucked this week. 102.5 for Swart, 76 for Sid. If you're Swart, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think through 6 weeks, what we thought we knew in the NFL, and I think I mentioned this on a prior episode, has changed on the weekly. Yet again, don't look now. Here come the Chiefs. 30 for Mahomes, 21 in a breakout performance of the season for DeAndre Swift on Monday night. Swart stops the bleeding with the win. If you're Sid, another week, another injury. Igbuka, I think I said his name right, for Tampa Bay, the rookie receiver. Sid was whining once again on the chat board. Once again whining about how he played him and he got hurt. Why are you playing him? George Pickens was on the bench with 24 points. T. Higgins was on the bench. It's not like you didn't have options. I get it, you're trying to win games, but a player like him, and you have other really good players, you could have kept him for rookie keeper. I'm starting to wonder your decision-making, Mr. Hagan. By the way, Andy's running backs, 52.5 points. Sid's running backs totaled 5. Sid falls to 4-2. Swart rises to 2-4. All right, last game here before the break. My hot spot coming in fresh off a great week. Lots of action. 3-2, taking on the Radioactive Monkeys at 1-4. And I mentioned in another tight game, my hotspot can't quite hold up to the challenge. 72.5 for Saltmarsh, 71 for Markshire. This again came down to Monday night. It is Markshire's 4th game decided by 3 or fewer points, and this one was a blocked field goal late in the game on Monday night between the Bears and the Bucks. If you are Saltmarsh, it says here, Drake London, huge game, 21 points for him. That blocked field goal is what sealed it. Markshire, Rico Dowdle, the revelation outside of Javonte Williams. I mean, of course, now Rico coming from Dallas. Dallas didn't want to re-sign him. He signed with Carolina. Carolina had a starting back. Chuba Hubbard got hurt. Where do we go now? If you're Markser, you hope it's Dowdle in the driver's seat. All right, so here we are at the break. Now, last week, the trip down memory lane, we watched a clip where who we thought was the president breaking down a trade between Jeff and Eric, Sid and Eric. And it eventually turned out to be Sid. It was all over the board. Well, this week, Sid has come back with yet further analysis on that exact moment. With no further ado, let's cut to Sid and hear what more he has to say on this matter.
Hey, FTFL. Good buddy Sid here. Thanks, Brett, for doing a blast from the past on the last FTFL weekly update. That made me think about that conspiracy. And I think you're right. I think that 6th round pick wasn't always meant up to be. I thought about all Eric was going for, but it goes much deeper than that. It's a story of anger and jealousy, greed and power, and our missing friend, John Linkowitz. Let me explain. It all starts off in a feat of anger and jealousy led by former FTFL player Ryan Deesum. His self-centeredness thought that when he left the league, it would collapse without him and we would all fall apart and he would be living scot-free, not having to think about the FTFL. Well, that didn't happen. He needed somebody on the inside to help him collapse this after we continued playing on without him. Bring in Eric, the commissioner, whose desire for power and greed to be the best franchise in FTFL history before the league disappears brought these two together to try and take down the FTFL while making Eric the greatest franchise in FTFL history in his mind. Bring in the enraged Ryan Deesum and the desire to be the best franchise, Eric. They needed a patsy, somebody that they could use to help take down the FTFL while distracting us from the real issue, the missing John Linkowitz. So they needed a patsy. And who better than the person that took Ryan Deesum's place, made him angry that we replaced him with himself, and forgot all about Deesum. And Eric is the one that could rig this. Peter, the patsy. Peter, being a patsy here, would allow Ryan to kidnap John, thinking that a player short in the FTFL, somebody not running their franchise right, would take down the league. Meanwhile, Eric could grow his franchise into a powerhouse by never getting the cringy. He controls the votes. Whoever has seen the results of the votes when we've issued them on to Eric, I think we need some recounts here. So, votes controlled by Eric. Nobody can see him. So Peter gets the cringy every year. Now, after Eric tried taking my 6th round pick and keeping Peter in the cringy area, while that was moving too slowly for him, he moved on to taking Peter's keepers. I contend Peter had his keepers in on time. I'd like to see the evidence. And then who ended up with Peter's keepers? You're right, Eric. Both Peter's keepers are now on his team to try and increase his championship count while also controlling the cringy vote to never give him a cringy. No one would be incompetent enough not to get their keepers in. I can't believe that. Right, Peter? Meanwhile, Deesum has John kidnapped in a Buffalo Bill style well. Watching him rub lotion all over himself all the time. Lotion gate. Don't worry, John. I'm your Detective Starling, and I have uncovered this case. I will pass this on to Bart. It is my contention in this case, then, with all 3 of these individuals being involved, that Deesum gets a toilet bowl as a wedding present. Peter has his good name restored. And Eric is getting the cringy for trying to rig the cringy so he would never get it. And I get my 6th round pick back. I hope this all makes sense. This cannot happen, FTFL. I hope we can all come to a conclusion on that. Thanks for listening.
I'm not entirely sure what to think of all that. I worry about my friend and where he's at, I guess, mentally. And at the same time, I can't help but think in Deesum's basement might be John Linkowitz. I guess add that to the list. Egan, Deesum's basement. These are places. I haven't heard from Bart in a while. Hopefully we hear something from him soon with regards to the hunt for John Linkowitz. And actually, speaking of Sid, I wanted to take another trip down memory lane this week, and it involves Sid, but this video does not include him. I give to you another blast from the past in the FTFL update.
Let's take a trip down memory lane.
All right, I'm about ready to head out and do my part of the bet with Sid. But just before I do, I want to read what Sid wrote, what the loser has to do. And this is what he wrote exactly on the website. Loser has to wear a sign and videotape themselves walking through their neighborhood saying, "My fantasy team sucks." 2 problems with this. 1, the sign doesn't specify what the sign has to say, how big the sign has to be, or where I have to wear it. And 2, it sounds like he wants me to say that his team sucks. So that's what I'm going to do. If this is what Sid wants, this is what Sid gets. I'll catch you on the outside. All right, so I'm outside, and here we go. Sid's fantasy team sucks. Sid's fantasy team sucks. Ooh, hold on. We got somebody up here. This is going to be good. Sid's fantasy team sucks. Excuse me. Hello. Hey, Sid's fantasy football team sucks. Hey, sorry, I'm in the neighborhood. I just lost a bet on my fantasy football team. And I have to go around saying that Sid's fantasy team sucks.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Sid's team sucks.
Thank you. There you have it. His team sucks. Come up to a house. Sid's fantasy team sucks.
You know, Swart, I don't care what Sid wrote down, how he worded it. You know what you were doing. You hosted. You still owe him a parade. At some point, hopefully someone gets you in another bet with a parade and they word it just correctly, because no matter how many times I watch that, it still makes me slightly upset. Not as upset as Kyler Murray makes me. Rest assured, you're ahead of him in my books, pal. But still slightly upset. All right, speaking of upset.
Fireball.
Let's get down to Peter's meter. Okay, now last we saw, of course, here is Peter's meter looking real nice and shiny. And where's Peter? Oh, he comes up through the... There's Peter up in the slot dancing around, of course. Peter is miles away from Fireball. Last we saw him, he was diving into the pit. I mean, I almost have to slide him out of the slot and come from a different angle and come right in here. Now, this was a terrible week for Peter. 51.5 points, not great at all. He falls to 2-4. Good news for Peter. He is only 2 games out. And so, like, as much as he is, like, diving into the dumpster fire, who knows? Maybe someone will snatch defeat and or victory from the jaws of defeat, if you will, pull him back out, slide him back the other way, and march him towards the other end. I'm not entirely sure I see that happening. Things are not going well for Peter. Currently, he finds himself headfirst down into the beginnings of a full-on dumpster fire.
Fireball.
All right, let's get to the last 2 games here as we go. Pack Attack coming in at 3-2, taking on Team Dickweed at 2-3. And wouldn't you know it, John got the better of Eric, 187. If you're John, Jaden Daniels had 24 points. The rookies on his team combined for 36.5. They have not necessarily been performing the way John would like. However, this week, not so terrible. If you're Eric, the Bum had 16 points. King Henry had 8.5. Buffalo looks in a bit of a disheveled state as they head into their bye. If you're Eric, you hope they figure things out because you're counting on them. Baltimore, too. Good God, how the mighty have fallen. I'm not entirely sure how they dig themselves out of this hole. By the way, Perrick's keepers, CMC and St. Brown, combined for 22 points this week was not enough. He falls to 3-3. John rises to 3-3. Last up, Team Hulkamaniacs coming in at 2-3, taking on the Valhalla Vandals at 2-3. This game was not pretty. It was not great. But thanks to my man, Bijan, who, of course, now this is the first week he had a huge touchdown and I lost, but he is holding his weight and playing out well after the trade. 69 points for me, 51.5 for Peter. I mentioned Bijan, an 81-yard touchdown run. That's 14 points on the board. He had 27 on the night. Trey McBride, 14 points. Best week of the season. Oh, any coincidence because Stupid Face Jr. was out? Maybe. If you're Peter, Herbert had 16. He was the only one in double digits. This thing is not looking good. I mean, 2 games out. Yes, you're close, but at the same time, I feel like you are so far away. All right, the stud of the dud in the games for next week. Stud, Andy's running backs, 52.5 points between 2 players. Good God, that is going to be tough to stop. I don't care who you are and who you have on your team. Dud of the week, Jeff, you let the South get away with a clean sweep. We could have done it, Jeff. We could have done it. Had your team not waited to the last moment to fail again. I know you're getting guys back. You're excited. You're 500 at the break. And maybe your team will be heading in the right direction. For this week, you put a blemish on what would have been a perfect 5-0 sweep of the South. All right, week 7, here we go. Mixing Cocktails coming in at 5-1, taking on Team Dickweed at 3-3. Make Cramerica great again at 4-2, taking on my hotspot. Going to give my hotspot a run for its money at 3-3. I may suck at fantasy football, but at least I got my keepers in at 3-3, taking on the Radioactive Monkeys, who are 2-4. The Hulkamaniacs at 3-3, taking on Team Linkowitz at 2-4. The Pack Attack, lastly, at 3-3, taking on the Valhalla Vandals at 2-4. Three matchups with a 3-3 versus a 2-4 team. Either everything gets a whole lot tighter this week, or slowly starts to stretch and give the division leaders more and more of a lead. And with that, that's the update. 6 weeks in the book. Next week, I suppose, is kind of the somewhat sort of halfway. Well, yeah, it's the halfway point next week. We'll be 7 games in, 7 to go before the playoffs. I'm having a blast. I hope you are too. Have a awesome MEA week. And until next time, peace!